It began like any ordinary Tuesday evening. Anna Stephen, a 58-year-old mother, was in her kitchen preparing dinner. After decades of living for others, cooking for her son, her family, and anyone who needed her, it was second nature. But on this night, as she reached for a pan, the room suddenly began to spin. The granite countertop she had worked so hard to afford rushed up to meet her, and in an instant everything went black. When Anna opened her eyes again, it was to the sharp burn of fluorescent lights and the rhythmic beeping of hospital machines. Her throat was dry, her body weak, and the sterile smell of antiseptic confirmed where she was. A nurse leaned over her bed, checking vitals with practiced care. "Mrs. Stephen, can you hear me?" Anna tried to speak but only managed a hoarse croak. The nurse gave a small, sympathetic smile. "Don't try to talk yet. You've been unconscious for several hours. You suffered a severe cardiac episode. We nearly lost you twice." The words hit harder than the fall itself. Nearly lost twice. A close brush with death. Anna's first thought wasn't of herself. It was of her only child, Michael, the son she had raised single-handedly after his father walked out when he was just 3 years old. The boy she had worked 3 jobs to put through school, the man she had supported through every stage of life. "Yes," she whispered when the nurse mentioned contacting her emergency contact. "Please call him." Through the thin hospital walls, Anna could hear the conversation unfold. The nurse's tone was urgent, professional, the kind of voice reserved for critical situations. "Mr. Stephen, this is Nurse Jennifer at St. Mary's Hospital. Your mother has been admitted. She's suffered a severe cardiac event." "Yes, sir, it's very serious. The doctors aren't sure if she'll make it through the night." Anna's pulse quickened. This was the moment, she thought, when decades of sacrifice would finally come full circle. Surely her son would drop everything and rush to her side. Surely love and loyalty would outweigh any trivial commitments. But then came his reply. "Look, I'm busy. I'm taking my wife to dinner at Le Bernardin. Do you know how hard it is to get reservations there? Besides, she doesn't have much time anyway. If she's going to die, she's going to die. Call me in the morning if she's still alive." The line went dead. Anna froze, staring at the ceiling tiles above her hospital bed. Each word replayed like a cruel echo in her mind. "I'm busy. If she's going to die, she's going to die." Her heart monitor betrayed her racing pulse, beeping wildly as shock and heartbreak coursed through her. When the nurse returned, her expression was carefully composed, the kind of face medical staff perfect when delivering news no patient should ever hear. "Mrs. Stephen, I'm so sorry. Your son said he can't come tonight due to prior commitments. He asked us to call him in the morning with an update." Prior commitments. A dinner reservation. That was what her life, her love, her years of sacrifice amounted to in her son's eyes. Anna nodded faintly, though inside she felt shattered. "I see," she whispered, though it tasted like glass in her throat. The nurse gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Sometimes the people who should care the most surprise us the worst. But you're strong. Stronger than you know. You're going to get through this." That night, alone in the hospital with nothing but machines for company, something inside Anna shifted. The woman who had spent nearly 6 decades putting others first, sacrificing her health, her finances, and her dreams for a son who saw her as disposable, that woman died in that hospital bed. What replaced her was someone new. Someone who realized love without respect is not love at all, it's manipulation. Someone who saw clearly, for the first time, that being a doormat isn't the same as being a good mother. And as the monitors beeped steadily into the night, Anna began to plan. Not her funeral, as Michael probably expected, but something far more satisfying. His downfall and her freedom. This was no longer just a story about survival. It was the beginning of betrayal exposed, justice served, and a mother's final stand to reclaim her worth. To understand the weight of Anna's heartbreak, you have to know the years that came before it. Anna wasn't just a mother. She was a provider, a protector, and a woman who gave everything without asking for anything in return. When Michael was 3, his father walked out. No explanation, no support, no visits. Just gone. That left Anna to raise her only child alone, holding together a life that seemed constantly on the verge of collapse. But collapse it never did, because she wouldn't let it. For years, Anna worked 3 jobs at once. During the day, she was a secretary at a local firm. In the evenings, she took shifts at a diner. And when everyone else was sleeping, she cleaned office buildings at 2 a.m. so that Michael could have food on the table, clothes that fit, and a future that didn't feel out of reach. There were nights when Anna came home so exhausted she fell asleep still wearing her work clothes. Nights when her dinner was nothing more than toast so Michael could have a full plate. She told herself it was temporary, that once he graduated, once he was established, he would take care of her the way she had taken care of him. And in some ways, Michael seemed to justify those sacrifices. He was bright, ambitious, charming, the kind of young man everyone said was destined for success. When he got into a good college, Anna celebrated with tears in her eyes. What Michael didn't see was the second mortgage she took on to pay his tuition. He never knew how many nights she cried alone, wondering if her body could handle the endless grind of work. But she never complained. Not once. Because in her mind, that's what love meant, giving without limits. The pattern only grew stronger as Michael became an adult. When he wanted a down payment for his first apartment, Anna provided it. When he started his consulting business, she emptied her retirement account to fund it. When he and Victoria bought their mansion, Anna co-signed the loan and even provided money from her life insurance policy. Each time, she told herself it was worth it. Each time, she believed Michael would remember her sacrifices. Each time, she thought this would finally be the moment he would step into the role of a loving, grateful son. But gratitude never came. Instead, entitlement grew. Michael and Victoria built a lifestyle that sparkled on the outside: luxury cars, exotic vacations, dinners at fine restaurants. Yet behind that sheen was Anna, still eating discount groceries, still skipping medical checkups to save money, still quietly making sure her son never had to face the sting of hardship. Even small moments revealed the imbalance. On Michael's wedding day, Anna was seated at the back of the room, far from the spotlight. Victoria had set her off the rack dress wouldn't photograph well. Family portraits excluded her entirely. She swallowed the insult with a smile because, she told herself, the important thing was that Michael was happy. But beneath those smiles, cracks were forming. Every holiday, every birthday, every occasion where Anna was an afterthought added weight to the truth she refused to face. Her sacrifices weren't building love. They were enabling dependence. And yet, she still believed, right up until that night in the hospital. She believed that her unconditional love would be enough to make Michael rush to her side. That after 31 years of giving, he would finally give back. Instead, she heard him dismiss her life with 4 words: "I'm busy." She'll die. That was the moment when decades of sacrifice transformed from a badge of honor into a chain she was finally ready to break. That first night in the hospital was the loneliest of Anna's life. Machines hummed steadily beside her, filling the silence her son should have broken. Every tick of the heart monitor was a reminder that she was alive, but not truly living. As she lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, memories surfaced like waves she couldn't stop. The countless nights spent worrying about bills. The overtime hours she had taken so Michael could have new clothes. The way she had said no to herself over and over again so she could always say yes to him. She thought about the empty chair beside her bed. Other patients had family members curled up in lopsided visitor chairs, holding their hands, whispering encouragement, refusing to leave even when nurses suggested they rest. Anna had no one. Not because she had no family, but because the only family she had didn't think she was worth the time. And in that raw, quiet moment, clarity came. The woman who had spent her life as a giver, the woman who mistook sacrifice for love, the woman who believed being a good mother meant erasing herself, that woman no longer existed. Anna realized she had confused enabling with love. She had mistaken Michael's dependence for closeness, when in truth it was just manipulation dressed up as family loyalty. She saw now that being a doormat doesn't make someone noble. It just teaches others to wipe their feet without ever saying thank you. That night, Anna felt something inside her harden. Not bitterness, strength. The kind of strength that comes when there's nothing left to lose, when you've already faced the worst and survived. For years, she had been terrified of the idea of Michael turning his back on her. But in that hospital bed, she saw that he already had. And she was still breathing, still alive, still capable of rewriting her story. For the first time in decades, Anna thought about herself. What did she want? What would make her happy? What would life look like if she stopped pouring every ounce of energy into someone who saw her as a resource instead of a mother? The answers came slowly, but they filled her with a fire she hadn't felt since her youth. She wanted freedom. She wanted dignity. She wanted to be more than Michael's safety net, more than Victoria's silent embarrassment, more than the woman who existed only in the shadows of other people's lives. She began to imagine a life where her money, her time, and her love went toward things that mattered, not bottomless demands and false emergencies. A life where she was respected, where she could finally say no without guilt, where she could sit in her own home and feel peace instead of waiting for the next phone call asking for help. By the time dawn broke, Anna wasn't just a survivor of a cardiac episode. She was a woman who had been reborn. The weakness that Michael mistook for her identity had been shed like an old skin. The nurse came in to check her vitals that morning and found a woman with steady eyes and a new resolve. Anna wasn't planning her funeral. She was planning something else entirely, not revenge for revenge's sake, but justice. The kind of justice that would free her from decades of manipulation. Michael thought she was weak. He thought her entire existence was bound to him, the crushing weight of always putting herself last. Now, with a second chance at life, Anna knew exactly what she needed to do. Michael hadn't visited her once during her entire stay. Not a single day. No flowers. No presents. No comfort. Just one generic card from the hospital gift shop, his name scrawled on the bottom like he was signing a contract. Not, "Love, Michael." Not even, "Your son, Michael." Just Michael. That silence gave Anna plenty of time to think. And plan. She started by remembering every sacrifice she had made for him, every check, every loan, every signature. The numbers added up to nearly $850,000 over 3 decades. Money she would never see again. Money he had taken as his due. Money he felt entitled to, not grateful for. The more she thought about it, the clearer her first step became. If Michael only valued her as a bank, then it was time to close the bank. Permanently. The morning after she was discharged, Anna showered, styled her silver hair, and slipped into her best black suit, the one she had worn to her husband's funeral. This time, though, it wasn't mourning attire. It was armor. Her first call was to her longtime banker, James Patterson, a man who had witnessed decades of her sacrifices. "James," she said evenly, "I need an emergency meeting this afternoon." When she arrived at the bank, James greeted her with the cautious concern of someone who had heard whispers of her hospitalization. "Anna, I heard about your heart. How are you feeling?" She smiled, but it wasn't the gentle smile he remembered. Like a woman who's finally awake. Inside his office, Anna laid out her demand. "I want to liquidate everything. Every savings account, every CD, every mutual fund. Move it all into new accounts that only I can access. And I want every account Michael touches closed." James hesitated. "Anna, that's drastic." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." And so, for the next 2 hours, she sat across from him as decades of her financial safety nets were dismantled. Joint accounts closed. Investments withdrawn. New accounts created with her name alone. By the time the paperwork was signed, the mother who had once guaranteed her sons every comfort had vanished. Her phone buzzed 17 times during that meeting. Michael. She ignored every call. By the time she walked out of the bank, the shift was complete. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. Free. No longer bound to the endless cycle of rescuing her son. That afternoon, as she poured herself a cup of tea, she played his voicemails. At first, they were calm. "Mom, the bank called me about some changes. Call me back." By message 5, the calm had cracked. Mom, seriously, I need you to call me. They said you closed our accounts. By message 10, panic was setting in. What the hell is going on? The bank won't tell me anything. Call me now. By message 17, desperation had replaced anger. Mom, please. I don't understand. Are you okay? I'm coming over. Anna smiled as she set down her cup. Perfect. When Michael arrived minutes later, pounding on her front door, she was ready. She greeted him with the calm poise of a woman who had already won. Michael, she said sweetly. What a surprise. Come in. He stormed past her, his suit rumpled, his face red with panic. Mom, what have you done? The bank says you closed everything. Tell me that's not true. Anna settled into her armchair, the one she'd bought used decades ago because she couldn't afford new furniture after paying for his MBA. I've taken control of my finances, dear. At my age, it's important to be organized. Organized? You've destroyed my business accounts, the emergency fund, everything. I need those. No, Michael, you used those. They were mine. For the first time in his life, Michael looked at his mother as if she were a stranger. The woman who had always said yes had finally said no, and meant it. His panic only confirmed what Anna already knew. His life was built on her back. Without her, the whole facade would collapse. That was exactly the point. Phase 1 was complete. The accounts were gone. The safety nets were cut. The mother he thought he could control with guilt and obligation had just revealed a version of herself he didn't recognize. And as Michael left her house that day, his threats echoing hollowly, "This isn't over, Mom," Anna smiled. He was right. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. With the accounts closed and her financial freedom restored, Anna could have stopped there. She could have walked away, content to finally live her life without being tethered to Michael's demands. But mothers know when something doesn't add up. And Anna had a gnawing suspicion that what she had uncovered so far was only the surface of a much deeper betrayal. She needed answers. And she knew exactly who to call. Sarah Martinez had been Anna's college roommate decades earlier. Today, she was one of the most respected private investigators in the state. Sharp-eyed, relentless, and utterly discreet. They hadn't spoken in years, but when Sarah picked up the phone, her warmth was unchanged. Anna, it's been too long. How are you? I'm having the best week of my life, Anna replied with a laugh that surprised even herself. And I need your help. Professional help. Within minutes, Anna was spilling everything: the hospital incident, Michael's cruel dismissal, the endless years of financial sacrifice, the sense that she had been blind for far too long. Sarah's voice was tight with anger by the end. Anna, I am so sorry. What exactly do you want me to find? Everything. His business, his marriage, his finances. I want to know the truth about my son, all of it. Give me a week, Sarah said. And true to her word, 1 week later they met at a quiet cafe downtown. The same cafe where, 35 years earlier, they had crammed for exams together. But the woman sitting across from Anna now wasn't laughing over textbooks. She carried a thick folder, her expression grim. How bad is it? Anna asked. Worse than you think, Sarah said. She opened the folder and began sliding photographs and documents across the table. The first was a glossy image of Michael and Victoria, smiling as they boarded a private jet. Designer luggage in hand, sunglasses perched casually, they looked every bit the picture of luxury. This was 3 days after you gave him that $75,000 emergency loan for business equipment, Sarah explained. They didn't buy computers. They spent it on a Maldives vacation. First-class flights, 5-star resort, the works. Anna's stomach dropped. She remembered the night he had called, panicked about an urgent expense threatening his company. She had transferred the money without hesitation, and he had lied without blinking. Sarah wasn't done. More photos followed. The medical emergency that supposedly required Anna to cover bills? Cosmetic surgery, elective procedures for Victoria. The business crisis that demanded another cash injection? A vacation home in the Hamptons. The tax emergency that had terrified Anna into draining savings? A new boat. Every crisis had been fabricated. Every dollar had been siphoned into luxury. In the past 3 years alone, Sarah said, they've taken over $400,000 from you under false pretenses. And they've been careful, fake invoices, forged documents. Someone's been helping them create paper trails. Anna's hands shook as she sifted through the evidence. It was one thing to suspect her son had taken advantage of her. It was another to see the receipts, proof that every so-called emergency had been nothing more than theft dressed up as need. But Sarah wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and played a video. Michael standing on a stage at a business conference, addressing a room full of young professionals. The key to success, he said confidently, is sacrifice. My wife and I saved aggressively in our 20s. We lived below our means so that we could invest wisely. That's how we built the life we have today. The audience applauded as he smiled modestly, as if he had built his empire through grit and discipline. Anna felt sick. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was building his reputation on my back and taking all the credit. And there's more, Sarah said softly. Michael's business loans? He used your credit rating to secure them. Without you, he never could have gotten approved. Technically legal, since you co-signed, but morally? He's built his entire empire on your name while pretending it's all him. Anna's eyes burned, not with tears this time, but with a fury she hadn't felt in years. But Sarah wasn't done. She laid out one final set of photos. Michael, Victoria, and another woman. Young, blonde, stunning, her hand on Michael's arm in a way that left no doubt about their intimacy. Her name's Amanda Collins, Sarah said. Marketing consultant. She's been Michael's mistress for over a year. That dinner at La Bernardine the night you were in the hospital? It wasn't just Michael and Victoria. Amanda was there too. Anna stared at the photos, each one another knife in the back. Her son hadn't just dismissed her while she lay dying. He had been out celebrating with his wife and his mistress at the same table. And the worst part? Victoria knew. Sarah had discovered that their marriage was an arrangement. Victoria got the social status and wealth she craved. Michael got to indulge his affairs. As long as the money kept flowing, neither cared. The betrayal was complete. Anna closed the folder slowly, her hands steady despite the storm raging inside her. They think I'm weak, she said quietly. They think I'm blind. They think I'm disposable. She looked up at Sarah, her eyes hard as steel. They have no idea what they've just unleashed. Michael showed up at Anna's door looking less like the polished consultant he pretended to be and more like a man on the edge. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and his eyes darted nervously, betraying the panic beneath his practiced confidence. "Mom," he said, pushing his way inside without waiting for her invitation. "We need to talk. Right now." Anna closed the door calmly behind him, her movements deliberate, almost theatrical. She wasn't the panicked mother he was used to manipulating. She was composed, calculating, and holding all the cards. "What's the rush, Michael?" she asked, her tone deceptively light. "Tea? You look stressed." "I don't want tea, I want answers." His voice cracked, raw with fear. "The bank says the accounts are closed, the credit cards are canceled, the loans are in trouble. What the hell have you done?" Anna lowered herself into her favorite armchair, the one she'd bought secondhand decades ago when she couldn't afford new furniture. She gestured toward the sofa, but Michael remained standing, pacing like a cornered animal. "I've taken control of my finances," Anna said evenly. "At my age, it's important to be organized." "Organized?" He laughed bitterly. "Mom, you've destroyed me. My business, my house, everything depends on those accounts. You can't just cut me off like this." Anna tilted her head. "Can't I?" He froze, caught off guard by her calm defiance. For the first time, it dawned on him that his mother wasn't bluffing. "Mom," he tried again, softening his voice, "we've always shared accounts. It's practical. If something happens to you, I can take care of everything. Something did happen to me. Anna snapped, her composure sharpening into steel. I nearly died last week. And where were you? The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came. I'll tell you where, Anna continued coldly. You were at La Bernardine, celebrating with your wife and your mistress. Michael's face drained of color. How do you? The nurse told me what you said on the phone, Anna cut in. That I didn't have much time anyway. That if I was going to die, I was going to die. Do you remember saying that? He stammered. I was in shock. I didn't mean it like it sounded. Oh, you meant it exactly like it sounded. Anna leaned forward, her eyes locking on his. Because the truth came out of your mouth before you had time to dress it up. My life, my death, was an inconvenience to you. Do you know what that feels like, Michael? To hear your only child dismiss your existence as an interruption to his dinner plans? Michael swallowed hard. Mom, please, that's not fair. Not fair? Anna laughed bitterly. What's not fair is 30 years of sacrifice repaid with contempt. What's not fair is me draining my retirement to build your business while you used my money for yachts, vacations, and women. What's not fair is me nearly dying alone while you toasted champagne with your wife and your mistress. He staggered back as if her words had struck him physically. Who told you that? Does it matter? Anna's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I know everything now. The false invoices. The loans. The lies. The affairs. You've spent years convincing yourself I was blind, but the truth is I just refuse to see the son you've become. Not anymore. Michael collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. Mom, I can't lose everything. The house, the business, I'll be ruined. You already ruined yourself, Anna said flatly. All I did was stop financing it. He lifted his head, desperation in his eyes. You can't just cut me off. I'm your son. Yes, she said, standing now, her presence towering over him. And that's the tragedy. Because if you were a stranger, I would have walked away years ago. But I kept hoping you'd remember the little boy who used to make me breakfast on Mother's Day, who used to cry when he scraped his knee. That boy is gone. What's left is a man who loves my bank account more than he's ever loved me. Michael's voice cracked. I can change. Anna's eyes softened, but only for a moment. Then prove it. But you'll prove it without my money. Without my safety nets. From this day forward, Michael, you stand on your own. As he stood to leave, his face twisted between panic and rage, he tried one last threat. This isn't over, Mom. I'll fight you. I'll have you declared incompetent. Anna smiled coldly. Good luck proving that in court. Because the truth, Michael, is that I've never been more competent in my life. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Anna stood in the quiet, her heart pounding not with fear but with triumph. The confrontation was over. The war had only just begun. When Anna cut Michael off, she thought it might take months for the impact to hit. She was wrong. It took days. The first domino fell with the cars. Victoria called early one Thursday morning, her voice shrill and frantic. Anna, what did you do? They repossessed my Mercedes. Right out of the spa parking lot. Do you know how humiliating that was? Anna clipped a rose from her garden, unbothered by the outrage pouring through the phone. Good morning, Victoria. Yes, I imagine it was embarrassing. But I don't see why you're calling me about it. They said the guarantor was removed from the loan, so the full balance was due immediately. That's you. You co-signed. You can't just pull out like that. Oh, but I can, Anna said, her voice smooth as silk. And I did. If you wanted a luxury car, perhaps you should have bought one you could actually afford. There was silence on the other end. Anna could almost hear Victoria's teeth grinding. You're being vindictive and petty. No, Victoria. I'm being responsible. Something you and my son should try sometime. Anna hung up before Victoria could respond. The first domino had fallen. The second came just hours later. Michael called, his tone no calmer than his wife's. Mom, the bank called in my business loans. Without you backing them, they're demanding immediate repayment. I can't keep the office open without those funds. Anna sipped her tea. Then perhaps you'll need to scale your business to what you can actually support. You don't understand, Mom. Without those loans, I'll lose everything. My employees, my reputation. You already lost my respect, Michael. The rest is just catching up. By the end of the week, the dominoes were falling fast. The credit cards, once paid promptly by Anna, began to default. Collection agencies called. Late fees piled up. Michael and Victoria's mansion, once a symbol of their curated success, became a liability they could no longer manage. On social media, Victoria's carefully crafted image began to crack. Gone were the endless posts of designer handbags, champagne dinners, and exotic getaways. In their place came vague captions about overcoming challenges and trusting the process. Her followers noticed. Comments shifted from admiration to suspicion. What happened to the luxury lifestyle? Why aren't you traveling anymore? Meanwhile, Michael's consulting business began to unravel. Clients whispered, word spread. If he couldn't manage his own finances, why should anyone trust him with theirs? Contracts were quietly canceled, referrals dried up, and the once smug consultant found himself scrambling to hold on to whatever scraps remained. And then came the poetic twist of fate. Betrayal eating itself alive. Anna's investigator Sarah called one afternoon, barely able to contain her glee. You're going to love this, Anna. Remember Victoria's best friend Stephanie? Yes, Anna said cautiously. Well, Stephanie just discovered that Victoria's been having an affair with her husband. How did she find out? Credit card statements. Since you cut off your accounts, Victoria started using Michael's business cards for her affairs. When the bills went unpaid, they went to collections. Stephanie works at the agency that processed them. She recognized the charges, hotels, restaurants, spa visits, all on the same days her husband was supposedly traveling for work. Anna sat back, stunned but not surprised. And Stephanie's filing for divorce and naming Victoria in the adultery claim. Oh, and one more thing, Stephanie's family business was Michael's biggest client. She fired him this morning, in front of half the country club. For the first time in years, Anna laughed until tears filled her eyes. Poetic justice, she said. And it was. Victoria's betrayal had detonated their marriage and Michael's business in one blow. By the end of the month, the picture was grim. The Mercedes was gone. The business loans were collapsing. The mansion was in foreclosure. The consulting firm was bleeding clients. And Michael and Victoria, who had once looked down on Anna as an embarrassment, were now the spectacle of whispered gossip in their social circle. Neighbors reported shouting matches in their driveway. Police had even been called once after the screaming grew so loud that witnesses thought it was violence. It wasn't, just two people finally realizing that their entire empire had been built on lies, and the lies had finally run out of funding. Through it all, Anna remained steady. She clipped her roses, read her books, enjoyed her tea, and let the dominoes fall. She hadn't raised her voice once. She hadn't needed to. The most powerful revenge was silence and the cold, hard truth of consequences. For decades, Michael and Victoria had believed Anna's love was infinite, her wallet bottomless, her patience unbreakable. But now they were learning the one lesson she had denied them for too long. When you abuse love, it doesn't just run out. It turns into something else. And that something else was power. While Michael and Victoria's world crumbled piece by piece, Anna's was quietly blossoming. For the first time in decades, she wasn't drained by constant demands, guilt, or last-minute emergencies. Her money was her own. Her time was her own. Her peace was her own. And she intended to enjoy every moment of it. The first thing Anna did was breathe. Not the shallow, weary breaths of someone waiting for the next shoe to drop, but full, satisfying breaths that filled her with calm. She woke up each morning without the dread of another phone call demanding money. The silence of her phone was not loneliness anymore, it was freedom. Then came small but powerful changes. She redecorated her living room, replacing the tired old furniture with pieces she had chosen simply because she liked them. She converted Michael's old bedroom into a bright home office where she began journaling her story, the beginnings of what would become her memoir. She treated herself to a new car, not because anyone else needed it, but because she wanted it. A cruise to Alaska, something she had always dreamed of but postponed endlessly because Michael might need the money. She even hired a gardener and a housekeeper. For years she had told herself luxuries like that were wasteful. Now she realized they were investments in her well-being. Her days took on a rhythm she hadn't known since her youth. Yoga in the morning sunroom. Coffee in her garden. Afternoons spent painting, reading, or volunteering at the women's shelter. She found herself laughing more, sleeping better, and rediscovering the parts of herself she had buried under decades of sacrifice. And perhaps the most surprising discovery of all, she didn't miss Michael's constant presence. She missed the boy he had been, yes. But she didn't miss the manipulation, the guilt trips, the endless requests disguised as affection. She realized how much space he had occupied in her mind and how much lighter life felt without that weight. For the first time in 30 years, Anna's life wasn't about survival. It was about living. And the irony was undeniable. While Michael and Victoria lost everything, Anna gained everything she had been denied for decades: peace, independence, and joy. Her transformation wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. The world had taught her that a mother's love was supposed to be limitless. But now she knew the truth. Love must have boundaries. Respect must be part of the equation. And self-respect comes first. Anna had been dismissed as weak, naive, and disposable. Now she was thriving, radiant, and free. And as she sat in her garden one evening, sipping a glass of wine while the sun dipped low on the horizon, she thought to herself, "This isn't the ending of my story. It's the beginning of a brand new chapter." It had been weeks since Anna's confrontation, and the silence between them had grown heavy. Michael's frantic calls had slowed, then stopped. His texts shifted from anger to pleading to nothing at all. For the first time in his adult life, he had no access to his mother's money, no safety net to fall back on, no way to mask the truth of his own failures. And that truth was beginning to break him. It happened one cold night in December. Anna was just settling into bed when she heard the faint scrape of paper sliding under her front door. Curious, she walked to the entryway and found an envelope with her name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a letter, 5 pages, densely covered in Michael's familiar scrawl. She sat in her favorite chair, the same one where she had confronted him weeks earlier, and began to read. "Mom," the letter began, "I've been sitting in my car outside your house for 3 hours trying to find the courage to knock on your door. I know you won't see me, so I'm writing this instead. You were right about everything. You're right that I don't really love you the way a son should love his mother. I loved what you represented. Safety, security, a fix for every problem I created. You were never a mother to me in my mind. You were an insurance policy. And I hate myself for admitting that." Anna's breath caught as she continued. "I manipulated you for years. Every time I said, 'I love you,' there was an angle. Every dinner, every phone call, every visit, it was always tied to money. When the hospital called, I thought only about how inconvenient it was. I dismissed your life like it meant nothing. I can't take those words back, but I hear them replay in my mind every day, and I feel sick." By the second page, Michael's mask of arrogance was gone. The words were desperate, unpolished, and brutally self-aware. "I've lived like a parasite. Victoria and I built a house of cards on your sacrifices. We flaunted money we didn't earn. I told myself I was successful, but I was just a fraud standing on your shoulders. And when you finally walked away, I realized I've built nothing real of my own." The letter didn't ask for money. It didn't try to bargain. It didn't even beg for forgiveness. It was, for the first time in Michael's life, simply an acknowledgement of who he was. "I don't know if I can change," he admitted near the end. "I don't know if I can become the son you deserved. But I want to try. Not to get my life back, not to restore the house or the cars, but because I finally understand what I lost when I lost your respect. I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be someone worthy of your love. Anna finished reading and sat very still. She had read thousands of words from Michael over the years, texts, emails, business proposals, excuses, apologies. But never words like these. For once, there was no manipulation woven into the sentences. No guilt tripping, no flattery, no demands. Just raw honesty and something she thought she might never see again in her son: humility. It wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Anna folded the letter carefully, placed it in her desk drawer, and let out a long, steady breath. She didn't know if Michael would change. She didn't know if trust could ever be rebuilt. But for the first time in years, she felt something toward him she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. 2 years after that night in the hospital, Anna's life looked nothing like the one she had left behind. Her modest house had been transformed into a sanctuary, bright, warm, and filled with touches of joy she had long denied herself. Her mornings began with yoga and coffee in her garden. Her afternoons were filled with painting classes, book club meetings, or volunteering at the women's shelter. And in the evenings, she wrote the memoir that poured her decades of pain, sacrifice, and awakening into words she hoped would help other women break free from the same traps. Freedom wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was her reality. But for Michael and Victoria, freedom had turned into something very different. The mansion had gone into foreclosure. The cars were gone. The consulting business, once propped up by Anna's credit and constant bailouts, had withered into near obscurity. Michael had been forced to downsize to an apartment and take on smaller clients just to survive. And Victoria? Her downfall came swiftly and spectacularly. One winter afternoon, Anna's phone rang. Michael's voice was quiet on the other end, stripped of arrogance. "Mom, Victoria's been arrested." Anna blinked. Arrested? For embezzlement. She'd been stealing from her employer to keep up appearances after the divorce. They traced over $200,000 in missing funds to offshore accounts. She's facing 5 to 10 years. Anna sat back, processing the irony. The woman who had once sneered at her dress, who had seated her at the back of her own son's wedding, who had treated her as an embarrassment, was now wearing a mugshot instead of designer gowns. "And how do you feel about that?" Anna asked carefully. Michael sighed. "Sad, honestly. Not because she doesn't deserve it. She does. But because I know what it feels like to lose everything because of your own choices. I wouldn't wish that emptiness on anyone." Anna studied his tone. It was the first time he had spoken without entitlement, without self-pity. There was no demand in his voice, only reflection. "I've been working at the mission downtown," he continued, "helping people get back on their feet. It's different. It feels real. I'm the program director now." For a moment, Anna didn't know what to say. This was not the Michael she had known, not the manipulator, not the arrogant fraud. This was someone humbled, someone trying. "And Sarah," he added softly, "I'm seeing someone new. She's a social worker. She doesn't care about money or status. Just about people. She makes me want to be better." Anna closed her eyes. For the first time in decades, she believed him. Their conversation stretched on, about his work, about his struggles, about how hard it was to start over without shortcuts. Michael didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply shared and listened and admitted when he didn't have the answers. When they hung up, Anna poured herself a glass of wine and looked out at her garden, glowing in the golden light of evening. She thought about the night she nearly died alone, dismissed as an inconvenience. She thought about the woman who was reborn in that hospital bed, the woman who chose respect over sacrifice, boundaries over manipulation, truth over illusions. Michael had once called her vindictive. Victoria had called her cruel. They were wrong. She hadn't destroyed them. She had simply stepped away and let the truth do the work. And now, as she raised her glass in a quiet toast to herself, Anna smiled. Because the sweetest revenge hadn't been watching them fall. It had been learning to rise.